People tend to ignore biology. I'm a high-performing individual myself. And at some point in time, I noticed that there are things that are just, crumbling. Like my sleep wasn't good enough, my recovery wasn't good enough. We've been evolving for millions and millions of years, but in the past roughly 150 and even 50 years, or even like maybe 15, with the emergence of tech like social media and other smartphones, etc., we have completely disrupted the way we live. We were built to interact with three-dimensional creatures like ourselves, right? And now we sit in front of each other, but we're not really in front of each other, right?
Hi everybody, I had the pleasure to speak with Vladislav Andreev, creator of Sapiens and Mental OS architect. In this conversation you're about to hear, we talk about loneliness, human connection, and why so many people feel disconnected even when they're constantly in touch. We then go beyond productivity and mindset, and dive deeper into what's happening behind the scenes, biologically and physiologically. We explore burnout, clarity, and what actually helps us rebuild energy and real human connection in a hyper-digital world. Enjoy! Hi everyone, thanks for watching or listening. Welcome to another episode of the Reach Out series, where we explore the intersections of human connection, technology, and mental well-being. I'm Yohay Elam, founder of TouchBase, an app that tackles loneliness by helping foster meaningful connections. And today I have with me Vladislav Andreev, who is a neuroscience-based coach helping founders rebuild clarity, energy, and purpose. He's the creator of Sapiens and the Mental OS architect, who is shaping thriving cultures. Vlad is also a public health educator and a public speaker. Thanks for coming on the show, Vlad.
Well, thank you for having me, Yohay. It's a real honor and pleasure to have a chance to talk about my passion, which is mental health.
Yeah, such an important topic. So, Vlad, for people discovering your work for the first time, how would you introduce yourself today beyond titles like neuroscience-based coach or mental OS architect?
Right. Yeah, thanks. I'd say like corporate refugee that got tired of corporate politics and bullshit and decided to change direction and become an entrepreneur. Other than that, I call myself a survival basically because survivor. Yeah. So yeah, it's been really tough time when I was growing up. It's quite, drastic times for 90s in my hometown in Russia, gang wars and such. So yeah, that was a difficult period that impacted the way I live. But other than that, yeah, I'd say I'm more of a public educator and entrepreneur.
I see. Yeah, you have a fascinating mix of neuroscience, coaching, public health, and also psychedelics edition. What was sort of the turning point that pushed you into this interdisciplinary path, if we can call it that way?
Yeah, that's it's going to be a long answer, but I'll try to make it a short one. So, first thing first, I left the country when the war started because for me, the value of human life is just beyond any comprehension. I mean, in terms of the value, and I cannot really connect with any society that is, supporting any type of killing. So, I left the country. I went to Lithuania, and there it took me some time to dismantle the stigma that was sitting in the back of my head, the paranoia state that was basically prohibiting me from, even talking publicly about topics like psychedelics. And I've been expanding my own consciousness for roughly 23 years of my life. So it's always been part of me, but that was like suppressed for the vast majority of time. And then when I heard about the psychedelic renaissance happening in the US, I was like, oh, okay, it's time to talk about it. So I started to dig. I got educated on the topic of therapeutic potential of psychedelics. And then I started to blog about it. And once I started to blog about it, I kind of got into that rabbit hole of mental health. And there it all just spiraled onwards. I found Huberman Lab podcast and started to listen from the very beginning. To this day, I think I've listened to roughly 800 hours of lectures in
Wow.
neuroscience, latest scientific evidence on biology, psychology, etc., etc. I've got some books behind me. Well, I read most of them, not all. So yeah, it was just fascination by human mind, by our biology, and the way consciousness is intertwined with our biology and what affects what depends on, depending on the imbalance of the system.
Oh, yeah, it's super interesting topics, and there are new studies coming out all the time, so lots to keep up to date with. Um, and you help founders rebuild clarity, founders, I guess, like myself, energy, purpose. Why do so many high-performing people lose these foundations just without noticing?
Right, that's a tough one actually. I mean, I'm a high performing individual myself, and throughout my
Mm.
corporate career, I used to climb ladders like this, achieve a lot. And even in my entrepreneurial role, I always, expect a lot from myself, and I perform well under pressure as well. But then at some point in time, I noticed that there are things that are just, crumbling. Like my sleep wasn't good enough, my recovery wasn't good enough. I started to feel that, it's just that the stress that is compiling and it's just sitting there and causing this, nervousness or irritation whenever I'm engaging with even loved ones. And then I started to notice things about myself. But then when I fixed my biology and when I acquired sufficient amount of knowledge about like general neuroscience and psychology, etc., I then started to put that into practice in the work that I do with my clients. And then I noticed one simple thing that was highly relevant for me, and it is highly relevant for others. People tend to ignore biology. It is so
Mm.
simple, it is so basic, but we as human beings, we've been evolving for millions of years, yet we think that, oh, we're gonna sleep when we die. Well, sure, but you're like getting closer to that moment, right? Or eating however we see fit because, yeah, it's just a fuel, or not move sufficiently, or, go check our emails or social media first thing when we wake up. And those are the small things that basically create the unstable system and the foundation. So if I to answer try to answer in a simple manner, I'd say people think that they can outsmart their own biology without
Mm.
recognizing that you cannot just ignore millions of years of evolution.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you mentioned sleep, and when I have a good night of sleep, I feel I wake up later, for example, I have fewer hours to work, but these hours are much more productive and much more creative. So, yeah, we should all get
That's how it works.
more sleep. Yeah. So when it comes to when someone comes to you burnt out or directionless, where do you usually begin? Clarity, energy, purpose, something else?
Right. Yeah. So I begin with the basic foundation, and we've already touched this. This is sleep, and sleep by far is the most important aspect in life, in health, in like mental health, physical health, whatever. So even if it's not just my work, but whenever somebody comes to see a doctor, and if a doctor, any type of specialty or profession, is not asking a patient what is like how is their sleep like, it's not a good doctor, I'd say, because by default, if your sleep, like not yours specifically but anyone's sleep, is either like insufficient or just not deep enough or not restorative enough, the rest is just crumbling. So purpose is nice and good. It's great to have purpose in life. I have it. I can help a person to unearth one. But if you have it, but your sleep is like, I don't know, 4 hours barely on a daily basis, well, you can't really fulfill anything much in your life. Not even talking about, striving to live up to your purpose, because again, it's more of a higher level priority, so to speak. So I start with basics again: sleep, nutrition, movement, and then we go on other aspects of the Sapiens OS framework.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you talked about mentioned those sapiens, and you call yourself a mental OS architect. What does
Yeah.
that mean in practice? How does somebody know their internal operating system and if it needs an update or an upgrade or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, I can talk about it for hours, but let me try to be concise here. So, in a nutshell, I've already mentioned that, we are a product of millions of years of evolution, right? And we got our innate in internal built mechanisms, neural networks that are making us behave in a certain manner, react in a certain manner, consume certain content or even food in a certain manner. And the problem that we have as species right now is that we've been evolving for millions and millions of years, but in the past roughly 150 and even 50 years, or even like maybe 15, with the emergence of tech like social media and other smartphones, etc., we have completely disrupted the way we live as the biological system or ecosystem in a sense, so that we have basically divided that system that we have, the hardware and the software, which is pretty much outdated in a sense, with the demands of the modern world and the technology, which is not built for our capacity to handle it, process it properly. So the problem emerges at this intersection or gap rather between the two, the existing like capabilities and the needs and requirements of the modern world, right? So for a person to actually be able to not just, be fine with whatever the technologies are, it is critical to first of all recognize what is your own biology. The good old know thyself aspect is critical at all times. So you need to understand, okay, what are my peculiarities in terms of my maybe genome or maybe epigenetics that make me, behave in a certain manner. And then once you understand this, and then you start to notice things around your own life, like, again, the use of social media, the way you interact with other technologies, the way you eat, how you feel, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you gather a sufficient amount of observations, you start to notice that like incoherence, so to speak, right? And the
Hmm.
mental architecture here, the one that I'm referring to, is the ability to recognize own innate built-in hardware and software like systems and the programs that are running in the background in an unconscious level, and recognizing what is the world as it is with all the text that is basically trying to use us in a certain manner, as in like getting our attention through social media, because attention is the new currency, or
Yeah.
make us buy sugary things, etc. So my goal is to help people harmonize their internal world with the external world and be able to live in coherence with oneself.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, to stay on the computer software hardware metaphors, you're helping them debug their own systems,
Yeah, pretty
something
much.
like that. I see. And yeah, social media is definitely something that causes our processors to overheat, I guess. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, you work with neuroscience, but you communicate in a very human, practical way. I mean, even if I weren't in the past a computer programmer, I can understand these metaphors. What's one neuroscience principle you wish everyone understood about their minds?
Oof, that's a good one. What's one? I'd say it's more of a concept rather than principle, but the concept of recognizing of how certain, or rather any decisions that you make in terms of how you live your life affect the way you basically cement a certain pattern of your behavior moving onwards.
Hmm.
Neuroplasticity, I'd say that would be the concept that I would want people to know more about, because neuroplasticity provides a lot of answers. Like when you're trying to build a habit, it's hard at first, but then over time with the repetition, it becomes part of you. It's like building a road, like internal highway, but you start slow. You just, cut through the trees or, through the field, and then you gradually build it and make it a very nice, like lane highway. So neuroplasticity is about that. And depending on what you do, you are investing in what you will behave like in like years to come or even decades. So where you put your energy, how you behave on a daily basis in terms of habits, actions, specific things that you do will basically shape the way you will feel in, years to come.
Very interesting. Yeah, everything we do has eventually an effect and should have a purpose to impact our future behavior. Um,
Mm.
super interesting. And you mentioned earlier, you talked about psychedelics. You're also involved in psychedelics education. And you mentioned a bit of what led you to explore this field. And how do you see psychedelics fitting into modern mental health approaches? Maybe how does it help us create these habits?
Right. Yeah, psychedelics are extremely powerful medicines, and I prefer to refer to them as in this particular manner rather than drugs or
Mm.
anything like that, because they can help heal people in terms of whether it's psychological mental health issues like PTSD, depression,
Oh, yeah.
anxiety, substance use disorder, or maybe even migraines or headaches, or not only that, and physical injuries as well. But they're quite powerful and they require a lot of understanding in terms of how to apply them safely, because there are certain risks, and I want to quickly highlight those for people that are unaware, because psychedelics on themselves, they are, as Stanislav Grof called them, non-specific amplifiers. So they amplify whatever's inside. They're not changing people per se, although there is one trait that they do change, which is openness. But
Mm.
nevertheless, if a person has a predisposition for schizophrenia or bipolar disease or their parents' disease, it would be better and safer to avoid an experience with psychedelics. But at the same time, bipolar disease can be treated with psychedelics, which is mind blowing if you ask me.
Oh,
But
wow. It is. It is.
nevertheless, yeah, it is. It's just completely crazy, right? So, on one hand, it's kind of not suggested, but then on the other hand, it can heal. It's completely ridiculous. But anyway, so if a person is in an unstable state, it is better to avoid consumption of psychedelics because that can lead to potential issues with mental health. And of course, it's important to understand what is the context, the set and setting, and the person who is facilitating the experience, because unfortunately, human nature is quite flawed. And, up to 10 women, up to 10% of women go through sexual abuse in psychedelic ceremonies, which is a shame.
Oh,
But going back to your original question, it is extremely powerful medicine that can not only heal people, but can also be used as catalyst for change. There is this concept of neuroplasticity that I mentioned earlier, and there is another concept that is related to it, which is called the critical window or period of critical period anyway. So the critical period is a window within which we as species, as a nervous system, can basically change our wiring, like literally and metaphorically, as in changing our perceptions, changing our belief system, changing our internal narratives, or
yeah.
nervous system regulation and connection with amygdala. And within this period, if you have proper support, if you understand how it all works, the structure of the psyche, the conscious level, unconscious level, belief systems, identity, etc., you can then basically update your own software so that you get rid
Mm.
of outdated narratives or, beliefs that no longer serve you. And they can also help you learn faster, learn new habits, or indulge in research or just absorbing new information. You become like a sponge basically. But of
Yeah.
course there's a dark side. They can be abused by people, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it seems like there's, I mean, well, like everything in life, they can be used correctly or incorrectly, and that can impact the outcome. And it seems like there's not enough proper use or not enough knowledge about how to apply these medicines correctly. Yeah, and
Well, just to be
what?
fair, just sorry
Yeah,
for interruption, just to quickly
no,
add
no.
here, even though there is a beautiful phrase that there is the need for more research, currently to this date, there is sufficient amount of information and data available that
Hmm.
clearly demonstrates that out of all existing drugs there are, psychedelics are more efficient when it comes to treating mental health illnesses. You just need to understand how, and the manuals are already there. The knowledge is there. It's quite public. You can get information, and I have it in my blog as well. But what I'm saying here is that it's so far decentralized, and there are some jurisdictions where psychedelic assisted therapy are part of, the therapeutic approach, like in Switzerland, for instance, where it's been okay for like 11 years, in Australia since like 3 years ago, in Germany, in Prague, or sorry, not Prague, Czech Republic, of course, in Canada, and well, parts of Netherlands, and yeah, other parts of the world as well. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Also, in my country, in Israel, I
Yeah.
know that psychedelics are used for PTSD, and there are unfortunately now lots of cases, and I know it's part of the system. I don't know if it's used carefully or not, but it is part of the medical protocol.
Mm.
So yeah. Another question: how do you balance scientific rigor, which we just discussed, the public health responsibility, and also the personal transformational stories people share with you? I mean, that's also part of what you do.
Yeah, I got plenty. So I have a blog on the therapeutic potential of psychedelics. I started it roughly 2 years ago in September 2023. I started it in Russian, then it was in Telegram. It still is in Telegram, and
Oh,
I got a blog in YouTube as well. But in YouTube is in Russian, but the Telegram has a nice feature that nowadays it automatically translates all information, so you can go and access it. So the reason I mention it is that I had first in history research of Russian-speaking psychonauts. It was a quantitative study. It was 106 people who went through the survey and they shared their information about, how they applied the substances, why they used it in the first place, et cetera, et cetera. So there were a lot of interesting discoveries in that research. And some people, and actually a lot of people, mention the therapeutic aspect of that experience on themselves. Some people did heal from PTSD, some people healed from depression, some people healed from
hmm.
anxiety, some people healed from alcohol use disorder, some people healed from opioid use disorder. There's like plenty of stories that are real life evidence. And for me, I have my own stories that I, not only share, but I'm still like blown away by the way it works, because some of the aspects are quite clear to me, because again, I work as a certified psychedelic coach and I understand what coaching is, and I understand how you can change your internal narrative and wiring. So I used microdosing for, my use of alcohol, and I just weaned off and it stopped completely. I haven't had a drink in 2 years with the assistance
Oh,
of
wow.
microdosing. Yeah, but recently I had a really profound experience with ibogaine, which is like hardcore psychedelic that can be potentially quite toxic for the heart, but if all the precautions are in place, it's quite safe. Nevertheless, thing that I did not expect at all, because it happened like 3 weeks ago, so it's still fresh for me. I had an injury, an ankle. I twisted it 23 years ago, and each time I, moved around, it clicked. So it doesn't
Mm.
click any longer. I'm like, how the does it work, right? But then I had like a very deep and profound experience, and to me, I can kind of explain it. But then again, when you witness things like this, it's just beyond comprehension at times. You can call it miracle. Unfortunately, some people do promise miracle cure and whatever, but I want to caution people from, falling for that, because psychedelics are not magic pill. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to heal you from cancer. It's going to show you like very radical reality in a sense, in terms of honesty with yourself. And then it can help you highlight certain dark elements of your psyche that were suppressed, like trauma, like pain, like, all the shadow that's been suppressed and not let be, shown to the light of the day, so that you can then take that and work with it and integrate it and then heal, because you can't just take a pill and then like, oh, I'm healed. It doesn't work like this. And this is the
I have
the
to cope.
biggest problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to confront it, and I
And
see.
work on a daily basis. The funny thing is that people take it and like, oh, that's it. I got this insight. I'm healed. No, 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 no. The work starts on Monday and then on Tuesday and then on Wednesday. And then you continue that shit, right? Because it's the
Yeah,
work you do.
it is. It is. It eventually, if somebody wants to get better, they need to work on themselves, heal themselves, and they can use medicine, they can use people, but they need to do
Yeah.
things themselves. I want to move from individuals to cultures, I mean, companies, communities. And we talked about, yeah, this mentality of everything's okay, which is, being performatively positive.
Mm.
What makes a culture genuinely healthy, in your opinion, or more authentic, more real?
Culture. Wow, that's a nice one.
Big.
I'd say, yeah, no, no, it's big. It's really important. I think the biggest thing that makes a culture thriving is education, access to, well, public access to knowledge, latest scientific evidence for sure. Because again, if you think about education systems that are in place, they're so outdated. I mean, they're coming from the pre-industrial era pretty much, where people were designed to just put into the boxes and then put to the factories to work, right? And then
Yeah.
not many systems, not many governments or institutions truly like revisited that system. Just for example, there's a lot of stigma in societies like India around menstruation, for instance, right? And India is
Mm.
like biggest nation in the world, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
penetration of sanitary pads is like 13% on the national level, which is
Oh, I
horrible.
didn't know that.
And
Yeah.
there are like really difficult parts of the culture that, when you interact with it, you're like, why is this even possible? But the answer is simple. It's just knowledge. Because if you take pupils in, age of 7 to 10 on both men, boys and girls, and then you talk to them about physiology, about, the importance of sleep, nutrition, movement, whatever, you then create a human individual that is not stigmatized by these societal structures that you cannot do this or shouldn't do this or you cannot go there or this is bad or good. I mean, you teach moral, you teach like the facts, you teach science, and this is how you shape the culture, because by limiting the knowledge, you are creating individuals that, suppress their own curiosity, and well, you dumb people down basically. But yeah, it is, in my view, highly critical to provide that knowledge as early as possible in a very neatly structured manner, so that, future humans have the proper information at hand.
So we talked about society, about culture, about values, and topic I'm into a lot is loneliness, which also affects young people,
Mm.
which who you mentioned. And from your perspective, what are the psychological ingredients that make people feel truly connected? How can we do that? What are the ingredients there?
Wow, that's a nice one. So the ingredients again, evolutionary. If we go back in time, so to speak, we've been living in tribes, right? So we've been living together in close communities, and this is how people still live in some parts of the world, in indigenous cultures of, say, Amazon, or some remote areas of like African continent or wherever. But the technology that we use on a daily basis completely changed the way we interact with each other. And I truly believe, it's not like my original thinking, but I 100% agree that one of the key reasons that we became more lonely is basically the use of social media And not only that, the gadgets in general, right? The availability of smartphones, because again, wherever you go, what you see on public transport, everybody's in the gadgets, right? Everybody's like either scrolling their social media feed or something else, or involved in messaging with others. But then again, it's not human connection per se. And then this is where I can go back to the evolutionary mechanisms, because again, we were built to interact with three-dimensional creatures like ourselves, right? And now we sit in front of each other, but we're not really in front of each other, right? Because there's a screen, there's a camera, we pretend that we're like in front of each other, but our brain perceives it like completely differently. So again, the reason are the technology, right? And the inability for us to adjust the use of technology so that we do not become the victim of technology,
Mm.
but rather complement our life with its use. But because it just hijacked our internal wiring, our ancient wiring in terms of our neurobiology, we are hooked to it, because it gives us a boost of dopamine. So one of the reasons I love living in Spain, for instance, is that Spain still to this day is a country where you can see people just randomly starting a conversation with each
Yeah.
other in public places, like just, somewhere on the street. Or the other day, I went to the store and I was looking for a jam without sugar. And then it's just some random dude who was doing shopping started a conversation with me about, different varieties of brands that don't have sugar. I'm like, wow, that's so cool, because the cultural aspect is still alive, and you still get to experience that live connection. And to me, it is critical. And just quickly going back to the framework that I have, the Sapiens OS, the pillar number 5 is social connections. So social connections are critical when it comes to mental health and longevity as well. So if you
Yeah.
look at the blue zones and the people who get to live to like 100 plus years, they live in communities. They have like regular conversations with each other, they visit each other, they interact with each other, and this is just so important for us as species that we completely again ignore, forget, and think that it's not important, but it is.
It
I
is. It
don't know
is. I
actually if I
remember.
answered your question.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, and I totally agree. And yeah, you mentioned Spain. I remember when we had the big blackout at the end of April. Then
Mm.
no electricity, no problem. People were at the bars. Okay, have to finish the beer before it gets warm. So lots of conversations. But yeah, we live already in a modern world. Most of the time, we do have electricity. As someone who understands the human brain quite deeply, what do you think that technology should do in terms of human connections and what it shouldn't do to foster healthier relationships?
um, I would, if I may rephrase that in terms of what
Sure.
we as species should do, because the technology
Mm,
itself is the, well, creation. That's what we
yeah.
as species create, like whether it's AI or some like specific tech piece, hardware. But then again, it becomes a tool, but it's not up to the tool to decide how we should behave. We can build it in a nice manner that it fosters communication, or in a way that it basically manipulates us by
Mm,
pulling the triggers, like one of the widest known social media platforms was originally designed to connect people. Nowadays it's just like selling you ads, and it makes sense. I mean, it's the capitalist world we live in. It cannot just help you connect and not even make any money out of it, right? So there's a balance between how to make money on one hand and then how to help people. And I think this is the question that people should be asking themselves, because whenever they introduce a new technology, I mean, first of all, if it's like entrepreneurial thing and you're like, oh, I'm gonna disrupt the whole market, probably the goal there is to, well, make tons of money, right? But then again, would you actually bring any value to human connection, or will you exploit the ancient wiring? Because all those big
Hmm.
corporations, they hire biggest talents in biology,
Yeah, yeah.
neuroscience,
The
etc.
best brains in the world
Exactly.
help abuse us. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like coming to a gunfight with a knife. It's just you pointless. You can't really compete with them. They have people from MIT, Harvard, etc. that know how you work, and they are going to exploit you. So going back to your question, I think it's the human element that we lack so much when we're thinking about creating a piece of tech. And even with AI, it's wonderful invention. It can really help people. And if you look at the data, funny thing is that the vast amount of use case scenarios is basically therapy. So psychologists are being
Ah,
replaced by AI. But at the same time, it's not perfect because it's biased by default, because all AI algorithms are built on the data that we have created. And then we fed that data and we expect that it's going to be objective. No, it's not. I can give you a case of it's probably related, but if it's not, just cut it out. I had an idea of the intervention for education system in India to help address that issue of the menstrual health. And the project that I published on LinkedIn was called Fanatic. This is the agency that I'm a co-owner of. It's called strategic marketing consultancy called Fanatic. So Fanatic's project dedicated to women, right, on LinkedIn, women's health, etc. But when you copy that link and send that link to someone, it says Fanatics project dedicated to activity, right? So
hmm.
women got replaced with activity. The weirdest thing, if you ask me, is that
That's weird already. Yeah.
word
Hmm.
activity has more letters, right?
Yeah.
Than women.
Yeah.
It's five. Like,
More
and activity is
syllables.
what,
Yeah.
eight? So, I mean, the reason I say this is to highlight that this is the bias that sits very deep at the core of the tech. And any technology that we create, we as humans create with our own biases in place. So I think the trick here is to be aware of own biases whenever someone creates a technology, and then understand that that bias could actually, shape the perception of the world. Because if you have a certain worldview and then you create a product with that worldview, you're basically imposing your worldview onto others, right? So I think, again, we need to be more human about to have like human centric perception of the world rather than uh, product perception, and think of, oh, technology should do this for us. What can we do to help ourselves with the assistance of technology?
Yeah. To find how technology can serve us, not how we can serve it. And yeah, with I mean, you mentioned that you don't drink alcohol, but there's an expression from wine, the wine world, that you can't make good wine from bad grapes, and that's
Mm,
AI. You have to have behind AI the good grapes, and then doesn't promise you'll make good wine, but at least you have a better. It's possible, at least.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So. Yeah, you mentioned that your course, what you do, fills a mental health education gap in the Russian-speaking world, if I'm not mistaken. What's missing
Mhm.
today, and what motivated you to build this resource?
Yeah, so originally it was built to, well, help people heal themselves, because I have a strong belief that in your life you should not rely on government or system or doctors to help you, because when you come to them, what they're doing, they're not that really trying to help you, because again, they're biased, they're sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. So what they do is they prescribe you pills, and they're not helping you address the issues. And then you go off, you live your life, and then you visit them, and some time whenever the issue arises. So my thinking there was to basically provide people the knowledge so that that knowledge can be used as a preemptive approach to health. so that you don't wait till,
Ah,
things get bad and then you go do something about your health, but rather you start thinking, okay, so if I want to live to, I don't know, 150 years or, 100, whatever, what do I need to do today to enjoy my life when I'm 100 years old or 150 rather than just, sit there like, oh, I can't wait to die. So
mm.
my thinking was to give people that type of knowledge so that they can implement it in their daily life. And that's why I started with Russian and then switched to English eventually.
Yeah, yeah. I like the preemptive, proactive approach. I feel that circling back to sleep is, if I have a good night's sleep, I'm the one initiating. Uh, I mean, leading things and not just being reactive and passive. And
Exactly.
uh, in this program, what do you hope your participants achieve, unlock at the end of it?
Right. Yeah. So I have when I started to build it, I did not know what's it gonna look like, but I started nevertheless. So my first version was in Russian, and the framework that I developed roughly a year ago, the Sapiens OS framework, consists of the 10 pillars of mental health, and those are sleep, nutrition, movement, stress management, social connections, light and dark, sense of agency, purpose, rest, and curiosity. So I started with the Russian micro learning course in Russian, and then I went on a small sabbatical, so to speak, related with my separation from a 7.5 year relationships and the need to move to another country. And then I had my own transformational process where I revisited that product, and luckily by that time World Health Organization released latest guidelines around mental health, and I read through them and I was like, shit, that's pretty much my framework in a sense. I'm like, okay, let's implement that as well. So I merged that information and built the second version of the product, which is structured around the 10 pillars. I use AI as a tool to help me structure the information in micro learning type of approach so that each video is like, between 4 to 6 minutes. It has very actionable, specific protocols that help people change their life for better. So, going back to your question, what is my goal and how do I want people to feel at the end? At the end of this program, I want people to have high level of energy on a constant basis because I remember back in the day, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I had those moments when I'm like, I'm highly productive, I'm highly performing, and then 2 weeks later, I'm like, shit, I can't do much. I'm just like exhausted, depleted. My energy is just not there. So the framework basically helps people to have this strong foundation for mental health and physical health. But not only this, it also helps people get rid of systemic inflammation. And systemic inflammation
Ah,
is a bad, bad thing for you. And I recently partnered with a doctor in a similar field that is now working to build a set of biomarkers that you can measure prior to entering the program and then after so that you can see the results in terms of your biology. Because the beauty of the framework is that it is so deep rooted in science and, well, everything's related with biology that when you implement all those changes in like 10 pillars of mental health and they don't require any pharmaceuticals, no supplements, no nothing, no drugs at all, once you implement that, it's bulletproof. It's just like, I mean, if you fix your sleep, if you eat properly, etc., 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 that's it. You're golden. You are going to be in a really beautiful state of mind and physical health. So this is what I'm striving for, to help people gain agency over their own mental and physical health, basically, and expand their health span.
yeah, makes sense. And okay, if we have, I mean, the normal routine of sleeping, eating, and everything else, what happens when we travel and we founders, I guess, but not only us. I'm now conducting this interview with you from Thailand, and I'm working from here. Yeah, last time we talked, you were also traveling and working, and there are lots of people like us. I mean, I wouldn't expect to find a co-working space here in an island.
Mm.
So when we move to different time zones and different environments, How does that affect our mental health, personal clarity, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a great one. It does affect our mental health and clarity if we let things just flow and don't adhere to pretty much same lifestyle and routine regime, so to speak. So, for example, if our sleep regime and my, sleep, it's pretty much non-negotiable with like rare
Mm.
exceptions. I go to sleep at 9:30 in the evening, 6 in the
It's
morning, I
early,
wake
huh?
up. Yeah, but the beauty of it is at 9:30, that's it. I'm asleep, you know. I don't need to wait, like 30 or minutes or like hour to fall asleep. That's it. I'm sleeping. And the beauty of that is that my biology knows when to release melatonin, right? And then of course I
Mm.
protect my sleep by avoiding bright light in the evening, caffeine like 10 hours prior to sleep, et cetera, et cetera. I have a lot of protocols, but going back to your question, whenever we're traveling and I travel as well, first of all, I bring all those protocols and then I, put them in place in the where I'm living right now, meaning I go to sleep and wake up at the same time. I exercise regularly, pretty much with the same consistency. The first thing I do upon waking up is doing a 12-minute stretching exercise routine. Eating according to the local schedule, looking at the light, especially in the morning, in the early hours, in the late hours when it's sunset type of light. This is critical for melatonin production and regulation of our circadian rhythm. So, short answer would be to basically adhere to the same protocols that you have in your daily life in your home place, and then just follow them, because the beauty of the system, once you have it's so solid. It holds you whatever the storm you need to weather, whether, I don't know, it's a relationship issue, whether it's a crisis or anything else. You can deal with it because your nervous system is regulated. But sometimes it may be hard to adhere to the same protocols, and it's a strange thing whenever
It
we're
is.
changing the environment. For our brain, it's quite hard to just continue doing the same because we're like, but this is all new, we need to adjust. So once you train that muscle inside of you, you can then adhere to it anywhere you go.
Yeah, makes sense. But still, when we travel, I mean, when it comes to work, there's asynchronous communication and relationships. I mean, it's not the same as we talked before between being in three dimensions in person or being on a screen like we are now. So, any advice, any tips to how to regulate these things?
Sure. So, well, I went through a program by Yale on leading global virtual teams. So I have a lot about
Uh-huh.
the async work and just remote work because I manage my strategic marketing agency 100% remotely for 3 years now. And there are a lot of tips, but then I'd say first and foremost, protect your regime of sleep. Sleep is just like saint, it's sacred rather, right? Then, when it comes to other obligations, whether it's work or commitments or relationships, etc., first priority is self-care. When you're flying on a
Mm.
plane, when they say, in case of emergency landing, you'll get the masks, and you put one on yourself and then on your child, right? So this is the mindset that we all have to have in our heads at all times. We need to prioritize self-care, and then we can, because we prioritize self-care, we have the capacity, we have the energy, we have the resources to take care of others, help others, communicate with others, show up, do whatever is necessary. But our nervous system has to be priority number one. But then going
Mm.
back to the tips, yeah, leave in line with local schedule, but protect your routine. Just 80% of the time, stick to it. 20 is the fluctuation that you can afford to not disbalance the system, I'd say.
Makes sense. Yeah, this 80-20% is also relevant. Applies to other things of doing. Yeah, in your work, 80% is what you're really good at, your strength, and 20% is something new, going outside the comfort zone. I wanted to ask, is there sort of one neuroscience-backed habit that somebody can adopt right now to feel a bit more mentally grounded, a bit better, especially if they're
Hmm.
overwhelmed and scattered? There's lots of talk recently in the world about being burnt.
Right. Yeah, I got a few actually. Well, the first one would be probably relevant for people who drink coffee, and if well, not coffee specifically, but caffeine rather, because caffeine can be in different shapes and forms, not necessarily only coffee. So the first thing would be to advice I would rather give to people is to avoid consuming caffeine for at least 90 minutes upon waking up.
Oh,
Once you
wow.
do that, you will feel the change in your energy throughout the day, right? So the second thing is that first meal of the day should be with high amount of protein and good fats, not like bad not the deep
French
fried
fries, yeah.
type of fat, right? But like avocado, for instance, or olive oil, etc. So the first meal of the day, aim for like 20 grams of protein, lean protein, ideally, and fats. One other caveat here, there's scientific evidence coming from Stacy Simmons, or Stacy Sims rather, from United States. She's got probably 100 of scientific papers published. She says that for women, it is critical to have some basic food within 30 minutes upon waking because the level of
Mm.
cortisol spikes so high that body considers it as a survival mode. And
Oh,
this
wow.
the trick here is not to have a proper breakfast because for some people it's a struggle at times, oh, I wake up, I don't want to eat. Okay, fine. But you need to trick your body and trick your brain so that it doesn't think that you're in survival mode. So I don't know, eat a banana, eat like, I don't know, protein shake or whatever. Just, something so that your body thinks that you're okay. Otherwise, for men, we have a slightly different physiology, so it's not that critical for us. But again, the first meal of the day, whenever it comes, ideally aim for high amounts of protein and yeah, good fats. Oh yeah, and one other thing, omega threes, like 3 grams of EPA per day is incredibly anti-inflammatory. But yeah, that's
Three
more of a
grams of what?
supplement.
Sorry, EPA.
EPA and
Ah,
DHA, yeah. I
hmm.
mean, you can
Okay.
read the label and count it for yourself. But this is more of a supplement. But yeah, in terms of neuroscience, yeah, and then avoid bright light in the evening. Social media again. Try to avoid going for it first thing in the morning or before sleep because it disrupts sleep and all your circadian rhythms as well.
Yeah. And we talked about tips for the body. And is there any practice that would help people reconnect with others in a meaningful way? This is
Yeah,
very related to what I'm doing at TouchBase, so maybe
yeah.
I can have a practical tip for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. And actually, I have discovered maybe like a year or so ago. So I'm an iPhone user, and you have the ability to set up your own like I don't know what's it called, like a mode of notifications, right? So
Mm.
basically, roughly a year and a half ago, I found this mode where it allows you to turn off all notifications at all, right? So I don't get, I mean, I get notifications, but I don't have anything popping up on my screen because they're turned off, they're muted, so to speak, right? So when I am with somebody, I don't take out phone and put it somewhere visible. I keep it like whether in my bag or in my pocket. And that actually, from scientific perspective, gives you as like human being to a capacity to concentrate on the person who is in front of you rather than think, oh, okay, maybe I got that message or maybe I got that notification or whatever, because you see the phone and your brain starts to get to it. So it's actually interesting thing that if you want to like study properly with a good level of focus, for instance, put your phone in another room so that your
Mm.
brain doesn't even like register it in the same environment and cannot it try to it won't try to think of it. So again, going back to your question, to me, to build a really proper human relationship, you should be present in the moment, right? And for this to happen, you need to get rid of technology, put everything on mute, and concentrate on just sitting, listening, breathing together, thinking, talking, like just looking each other in the eyes, maybe like using silence, contemplating, connecting with yourself, with the other human being. And this is such a talent that you need to basically cultivate to build that relationship, because nowadays you see people, they sit together, everybody's on their phone. You're like, but you're not even like together. You're just making an excuse to be with somebody, but you're doing whatever you're doing, right? So my
Yeah.
advice would be to put technology away and connect on human level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I hear a notification, I have no idea what it is, but it immediately my brain begins running and speculating about what that notification is. Eventually, it could be some, well, news application that sends me a piece of analysis that I can read in a few days from now. It's okay, or ignore. Yeah, but it takes me away from the here and now. And one more question in that sense. We talked about the tactical, the practical for the body, the human connection, and maybe I want to ask something a bit about a mindset shift you wish more people would adopt that would help them with their mental health.
Yeah. So in terms of that shift, I'd say it would be great if people would think preemptively about their health,
Mm,
because there's this tendency to deal with health issues once we hit the bottom, basically, whether it's like mental or physical, then we're depleted, or we just, like in a dark space and it's bottom, and only then we decide to change. And it is quite hard actually, because when you hit the bottom, you need to climb all the way back, right? And it requires a lot of effort, and
slippery.
you don't, yeah, and it's slippery, it's hard, and you don't have the energy, you don't have the mental capacity, because for example, movement is the medicine, dance is the medicine, right? And if you do like strength training, like 20 minutes per day, like 2 or 3 times a week for the duration of 3 weeks, you are going to alleviate depression symptoms. But go tell to a person who is deeply depressed that they need to do strength training. They're gonna, yeah, I cannot even wake up or just get out of the bed, right? So this is like the bottom. But if you do that preemptively, it's a totally different narrative, because again, change usually happens when people have diagnosed, like they get to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, you got this, and they're like, shit, now I need to do something about it. Their friends or relatives face a diagnosis, and then like, oh, maybe I should go visit a doctor. Third usually comes from near death experiences. Somebody got almost hit by a car or got hit by a car, whatever. And then like, oh, I need to reevaluate my life choices, etc. Or people get to a certain age and then they're like, oh, my body feels different. I mean, I'm no longer young. Well, this is kind of, yeah, good time to change. There's this beautiful Chinese proverb: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is now, right? And people wait. Well, they're like, ah, yeah, well, I'll start living on Monday. 1st January comes, new life. Yeah, shit, that doesn't last long. But if
Yeah.
you think, like, how many years do you want to live on this planet? And how many years of those you want to live in a good health? You start to, question your life choices, because funny thing is that, so everybody knows about lifespan. I mean, we're the only species on Earth that are aware of our own mortality. We'll die, right, eventually. But there's this other concept called health span. And health span is the amount of years that you get to live a relatively healthy life without, severe chronic diseases, so you can walk around, be
Mm.
social, enjoy, eat by yourself, be by yourself, etc. And the gap between lifespan and health span on average on a planet is 10 years. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So 10 years, people get to basically survive, or rather, just wait for death to come.
Yeah.
So if you think about it preemptively, if you start to build a foundation today, you then shorten the gap between lifespan and health span. And basically, when the time comes, you die, but you die in a, nice way, because you're still enjoying your life. You're still, at your peak. You're like mobile, you're traveling, you're, sociable, etc., etc. So again, going back to your question, the earlier you start, the better the outcome is going to be in the long run. And I think that this is something that we as species don't really consider much. We're like, yeah, yeah, I'll deal with it when the time comes. It won't come.
Yeah, yeah, and when it comes, it might be too late. And yeah, so deal with take care of things right now. That's yeah, we're drawing to a close, and that's I think a good message. But do you have any other thoughts or advice to share?
Whew. Yeah, I think the only advice that I can throw on top of that is that the learning journey as well as healing journey is very individual, and you cannot force anyone into healing. But then once you start the healing journey yourself, it is not that straightforward. You can go through some dark moments when you would doubt things that you've decided to implement, and you think that, oh, it's not working. It does work, but you just need to be persistent. You need to,
Mm,
believe in the process that it will happen, because a lot of people expect fast results, right? We want things to work out right away. We want to take a pill and, get away with all the issues that we have, or get rid of the issues that we have. But it does not work like this. The true thriving comes from daily exercising of, healthy life choices, be it food related or relationship related or self-care related. So yeah, it's interesting journey. Life is beautiful, but the perception is critical. And if people perceive, choices as something that they have to do, well, it's not gonna bring joy to life. But if you change your mindset and think, oh, it's a great thing that I'm doing this because I'm taking care of my future self. This is a totally different picture. So again, perception is key, but the road to change starts with the first step, and then it takes a lot of steps. But it's a journey. It's a beautiful journey. Oh, there's one phrase that I want to end with. I remember that. No, there's I don't remember what is the source, but I heard it from one of the Spongel songs. So we should not concern ourselves so much with the pursuit of happiness, but rather with the happiness of pursuit.
all right, that's a high note. Happiness of pursuit. Okay, Vlad. So thank you very much for sharing your insights today. I've certainly learned a lot. I've been taking notes. I mean, not while I'm speaking with you, but it's recorded, so my mind has been taking notes, and I'm sure our listeners will and viewers also learned a lot. So, where can people learn more about you, your work, or connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I'll share the links, but there are two products that are easy to find. The one is O exclamation point Sapiens or Sapiens OS, and the other one is Entheogen Expert. So one is O Sapiens Expert, the other one is Entheogen Expert. So both are my brands. One is mental health. The other one is the therapeutic application of entheogens to treat mental health illnesses as well. So, and LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah. Okay, we'll share links in the show notes. So thank you very
Much.
much once again, Vlad. This has been a truly enlightening conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi. It was a pleasure to be here as your guest, and thank you for letting me have a chance to talk about my passion.
Great. So this has been another episode in the Reach Out series of TouchBase. I encourage you all to download TouchBase, follow also me on LinkedIn, and stay tuned for more. And until the next time, thank you and goodbye.